Welcome, and thank you for standing by. Today's call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Participants are in a listen-only mode until the question and answer portion of today's conference. At that time, you may press star 1 on your phone to ask a question. I would now like to turn the conference over to your host, Gray Hadaloma. Thank you. You may begin.
Thank you. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to our teleconference about the newest named member of NASA's science fleet. We've just announced the name of the Mars rover that will launch this summer, and today we're celebrating that rover named Perseverance and the young man who came up with that name. With us today to answer questions about the rover and the naming are Dr. Thomas Zurbuchen, head of NASA's Science Mission Directorate, Dr. Lori Glaze, head of NASA's Planetary Science Division, Matt Wallace, Perseverance Mission Deputy Project Manager at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and Alex Mather, winner of the Rover Naming Contest here at Lake Braddock Secondary School in Burke, Virginia. Before we get to questions, a few quick housekeeping things. Be sure to press star 1 to get in the question queue. We'll get to as many as we can. And there will be a replay of this call available for 1 month from today. The replay number is 888-433-2205. I'll repeat that at the end of the call in case you didn't get that. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Thomas Zurbuchen and Lori Glaze for a couple of quick comments before we get started.
Thanks so much, Gray. And I just really am so excited to be part of this. What I loved about this event today and what I love about the entire naming is that what comes together is the generation of achievers who are doing the amazing work that actually built that rover, and the next generation that in many ways will benefit from it. And at the confluence of those two things, that next Artemis generation and amazing experts who are doing this, is that name, Perseverance. For me, what I love about it from an engineering point of view, it's like having built space instruments that went to planetary places, and having known how hard that is. It's just exactly how I feel. Yes, it's that curiosity that pulls us out there, but it's the perseverance that does not let us give up. There's no exploration without perseverance, and I really agree with Alex how important that is, together with the other names that are there. The other thing that, as a scientist, the way I think about it is another A word, which is astrobiology. It's this really a field that, in many ways, is a field that, like few others, is defined by what our work is at NASA, and is descriptive of so many missions that we're currently working on, including Perseverance or Mars 2020. And so for me, that really finding life elsewhere is just one of those things that, of course, we've puzzled over for many generations. And I'm just so excited that with Alex and his generation to be really opening up that exploration with Perseverance, this rover that will get there early next year. And I couldn't be more excited to be part of that and get the energy of that next generation of explorers that hopefully will, of course, join us and actually make us even better than we are today. And I want to turn it over to you, Lori.
Great. Thank you, Thomas. As Thomas says, the Perseverance rover, one of its main goals does have to do with astrobiology, which is understanding the types of environments that could have possibly been places where life took form many billions of years ago, 3.5 billion years ago on Mars. And the important part about the Perseverance rover is that it's the first leg of the first round trip to Mars. The Perseverance rover will be collecting samples that will be stored on the surface of Mars until we can go back and collect those and bring them back to Earth to answer these really important questions about was that environment a place that life could have taken hold, or was there, in fact, even some remnants or fossil evidence of that of some early life that might still be preserved in the surface of Mars. But today is a really exciting day where we got to spend a lot of time here at Lake Braddock Secondary School. And I was one of the ones that was really lucky enough to be on the interview panel of the 9 finalists, and got to talk with Alex virtually. And today got to meet him in person and meet many of his classmates here at the secondary school. again, all of these students here are part of that Artemis generation. As NASA, with all of our international and commercial partners, we're all going back to the moon with eyes to getting to Mars with humans in the future. And as a planetary scientist, we're developing and operating many robotic missions throughout the solar system, leading the way for future human exploration. And it's all of that work that we do now that will help us, help the Artemis generation in the future figure out where we're going to go next, what those next destinations will be. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Matt to say a few words about the Perseverance.
Thanks, Lori. The spacecraft is essentially all the components are now down at Kennedy Space Center. We're going to spend the next few weeks doing the final assembly and testing on the individual vehicles, and then we'll start stacking up the spacecraft. That'll take a couple months, and then we'll be ready to integrate it onto the launch vehicle and get it out to the pad for our July 17th opening of the launch window. So things are going well on the mission, on the project, and we're super excited to have a name. The team was participating in all of the activities today at the event, and we love Alex's selection of a name for our rover.
All right, thanks, Matt. We have been asking for questions on social media with hashtag AskNASA, so I'm going to start with a couple of those. Abravius on Twitter asks, what was the biggest challenge faced by the team? I think that's probably one for you, Matt, since I mean the Perseverance team.
Well, whenever you're putting these spacecraft together, you're going to run up against some obstacles and some challenges. They're just very complex vehicles. You know, we started with the concept development on this almost 10 years ago. And these missions come with a number of particularly difficult aspects to them. Getting down onto the surface is one of them. So we call entry, descent, and landing. We call it the 7 minutes of terror. And the systems that get us from the approach to Mars all the way down to Jezero Crater, which is our targeted landing site, are critical. The spacecraft has to perform all those functions perfectly, and it has to do it autonomously. There's no interaction with the operators during that period of time. So that's always one of the biggest challenges for a system like this. And then I'll also mention that our Mars rovers are a little unique in that they have a lot of mechanisms on board. And mechanisms are difficult things to develop because they have to operate in a very harsh Martian environment, one that cycles from minus 180 degrees Fahrenheit all the way up to room temperature pretty much every single day. They have to deal with very fine dust, you know, almost talcum powder, and you have to protect your mechanisms from those things. And we have a lot of mechanisms on the vehicle, not just mobility and mass, but our sampling system. And so those are always big challenges. So the team knows a lot about perseverance, and those are a couple of the things we worked our way through the last 8-9 years.
Okay, thanks, Matt. All right, operator, we're ready for our next question from one of the online participants.
Certainly, and as a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, please press star followed by 1 and make sure that your line is unmuted. Our first question comes from Mike Wall with space.com. Your line is open.
Thank you all. I'd just like to ask a quick question of Dr. Z. Could you just say a little bit about how important, a rover mission's name is to the overall, to the mission and to the outreach? Just what it means in terms of being able to connect, with the public, and to kind of follow on that. It seems like everybody is already calling it. I mean, we already have a nickname, and that's Percy. And how do you guys feel about Percy as a nickname for this thing? Thank you.
Thanks so much for the question. I don't know how you feel yourself kind of as a person, but I too think of rovers as these robotic these robotic personalities that are out there and are really making the mission. So I think of opportunity, I think of spirit. Of course, opportunity also with the nickname Api that is very, very soon people were using just because it's a multi-syllable word. For me, the name, whether it's Perseverance or Percy, people call it that way, is really a part of that character of that mission that we will relate to as we go forward. It will be in the news many times, and we will think of it. And not only us as researchers and engineers, but people all over the world will connect to it in a direct fashion. So is it important? I think it really is important for us, especially in our Mars program, in our with our rovers. It's just a really important part, and it has helped us to also explain the importance of science and the excitement of engineering to so many as a result of that. I love it, absolutely love it.
Okay, thanks. Next question.
Our next question comes from Ken Kramer with Space Up Close. Your line is open.
Hi, thank you for doing this, and congratulations to all of you, especially Alex. I think it's a great name. I listened to your essay. I got a couple of questions. I was curious, how long did you work on this essay? I want to know, do you want to be an astronaut going to Mars? And about the name itself, Opportunity actually died from the dust storm there in Perseverance in a gully where it was water-carved gully. Did that play a role in your naming of this rover at all?
So starting with the first question, typing up the essay and drafting it out, I think I spent about a day's work on that, but actually getting the name took about 2 weeks of solid research and brainstorming and being more of a space nerd than I already am.
And do you want to be an astronaut?
Oh, yeah. So I would like to be an astronaut. It's pushing the frontiers of space exploration, and I would like to be on the very edge of that. But if I don't make it, since it's a very hard job to get, engineering at NASA would be a job I could have the same amount of fulfillment with.
Okay. And did Opportunity dying in a dust storm influence you at all?
Yes, definitely.
Right, it did. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that then.
So, Opportunity, and there was one other mission called Vikram 2, which India launched that failed, and I mentioned those in my essay because those were proof of how hard Mars missions are and how much perseverance it takes. And they were big reasons for me choosing Perseverance as the final name.
Great, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Alex. Okay, ready for our next question?
And next we have Keith Cowing from NASAWatch.com. Your line's open.
Hi, thanks for doing this today for Thomas and for Lori. It was good to hear the word astrobiology and Mars 2020, now Perseverance in the same sentence. This is an overt astrobiology mission, and astrobiology is really an emergent discipline for the 21st century that, people like Alex are going to be studying as they prepare to, as part of the Artemis generation to go to Mars. And this word is used in many textbooks and classes and so forth now, and I'm just wondering, now that we're talking about astrobiology as a thing that propels missions, are you going to use the Mars 2020 mission to enhance the visibility of astrobiology? And also, it's possible we may have as many as 4 rovers on Mars in the next year and a half or so, all of which are doing one sort or another of astrobiology. Are there any ways being contemplated to have an outreach effort that brings all 4 of them together, and also to couple this with people like Alex, inspiring them for future careers in studying Mars and astrobiology?
Hi, Keith. This is Lori. Thank you for the question. And absolutely, we intend to use the Mars 2020 as we go forward here to bring much more visibility to the word astrobiology and to the field of astrobiology. I mean, clearly this is a main focus, as you know, of the mission to try and better understand those environments and understand whether life could have or did actually take hold there and to collect those samples and bring them back and really, test those and see what was really there. And I think, even in some of the other missions that we have as well, as we start talking about Dragonfly, for example, and Europa Clipper, we intend to bring astrobiology, much more visibility to the astrobiology aspects of those missions as well. They all carry different types of payloads and different types of experiments that all contribute to our better understanding of what types of environments could host life throughout the solar system. As far as the multiple Mars launches and the multiple missions are going to be at Mars very soon, we are working, hopefully, to bring all those together. I think it's a fantastic international year for Mars, where we're all working side by side, sometimes together as partners, sometimes independently, but I think it's going to be really exciting to have that many new missions arriving at the same time, and we are looking to, again, try and bring more visibility to those partnerships and to the significant interest in trying to do more robotic exploration at Mars.
All right, thanks, Lori. Next question.
Our next question comes from Robert Perlman with Collect Space. Your line is open.
Thank you. I guess this is first for Lori. Out of the 28,000 entries that were received, how unique was Perseverance? Do you know how many others suggested the name, if they did, or was Alex's entry stood alone on that? And for Alex, congratulations. If I can ask if you could confirm what your age is, and also I know it's early, but have you heard from Clara Ma or from any of the other students who have named some of the rovers in the past?
So I'll take the first part first, and then we'll let Alex answer the second part. So certainly Perseverance was not the only submission of Perseverance. There were certainly more than one. I don't know the total number of Perseverances that were in the 28,000, but it really boiled down to the essay. Certainly the name is a big part in understanding and getting a sense of how that personality is going to relate to the robotic mission. But most of the evaluation was based on the content of the essay. And so even though there were multiple submissions of that word, it really boiled down to the outstanding essay that Alex put forward that really was, in my mind, very moving and really captured the spirit of the exploration that we're attempting to do with the Perseverance mission.
Thanks, Lloyd.
And I think you had a question if you want to let him repeat.
Do you want to repeat your questions for Alex?
Sure. One, just quickly, I know the release said you were in 7th grade. How old are you? And also, I know it's early, but have you heard from Clara Ma or any of the other students who have named NASA's past Mars rovers?
Thank you. I am 13 years old, and while I met Clara Ma in the finalist interview, I have not heard from her since.
To be honest, this is Lori again. Clara learned about the selection the same time the rest of the world did at 1:30 Eastern this afternoon, so she probably just found out.
And she lives in London.
And she lives in London, by the way, which is significantly later. Exactly. But as Alex did get to meet Clara, she was one of the panelists in the final interview.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to take a couple more Ask NASA questions here. Eduardo on Twitter asks, how much time will it take for the rover to arrive on Mars, and how will it enter the atmosphere? Matt, do you want to try that one?
Sure. We launch on July 17th, or at least that's when the window opens. We should launch pretty close to the opening of the window, and we land on February 18th. So that's the period of time it takes on the trajectory we're on. When we get to Mars, we'll be traveling about 12 or 13,000 miles an hour, and so we have to go through a number of different activities to get to a point where we can safely touch down. The first thing that happens is we slow down as the heat shield enters the outer atmosphere. That gets us down to about 1,000 miles an hour or so. Then we deploy an enormous supersonic parachute, and that'll slow us down to 150 miles an hour or so, and eventually then we drop out of the aeroshell, which protected us during entry, and we use rocket engines on our descent stage to take us most of the rest of the way as we approach the ground. The rover deploys down on a tether, and the wheels come down. The wheels will touch the surface at Jezero. We'll cut the tether. The descent stage is done. It will fly away, and we're on the ground. It's pretty simple. But that whole process is called entry, descent, and landing, and the technique that's used for that terminal descent is a technique we call sky crane, after the big heavy lift military helicopters that carry cargo below them on tethers. It's the same fundamental approach that we used on Curiosity, although we've added a couple additional capabilities to make the landing safer at Jezero.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Another one that might be for you and or any of our scientists. Manish Mishra on Twitter asks, how will Perseverance advance the science beyond what Curiosity's been doing?
I'll take that one. This is Lori. It's a great question. So the Curiosity rover, of course, landed in Gale Crater, which is a place where they discovered there had been standing water. Certainly looks like confirmation of a much warmer and wetter Mars in the distant past. They were able to identify that the water that was present in that crater was at a pH level or an acidity that was actually something that would be conducive to life here on Earth, as opposed to some of the other places we'd found previously that had very acidic water where we don't think life could have formed. So we know that there were conditions there and water available where life could have potentially been hosted. They also identified complex organic molecules that could have been the early building blocks of life. So we've learned an enormous amount from Curiosity. But what Perseverance is going to do to push things forward well beyond what Curiosity was able to do, it is going to carry some specialized instrumentation that will be able to detect potentially if biomarkers are present in the soil that could give us some indicators that perhaps there might be the right molecules there that could be life-bearing. And then the one thing that Perseverance can do that we've never tried before to push things way beyond is to collect the samples, to take cores of the soil there at Jezero Crater and give us the ability to bring those back to Earth where we can now study them in our own laboratories here. We have tremendous capabilities on Earth that we can only try to do in a small way on the surface of Mars. So the ability to bring those samples back here really is going to open the floodgates of discovery. Not only initially when we bring them back with our state-of-the-art instrumentation, but going forward, saving those samples for posterity, and so that we can use future instrumentation we haven't even thought of, and to develop, to test new hypotheses that we haven't even thought about yet. We're also going to be testing oxygen production from the Martian atmosphere when we're there as well.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Remind everybody that you can press *1 for a question. If there are no more questions, we'll wrap up in just a minute here, but just wanted to give people one more chance to ask any more questions before we sign off. All right, well, thank you, everybody, for participating in our call today, and please be sure to follow the Perseverance rover at its new social account at NASA Persevere. And I will repeat the replay call number one more time. It's 888-433-2205. That'll be available for 1 month after this call. Thank you.
This concludes today's conference. You may disconnect at this time.